The Reiki method of healing was founded on the understanding of the body's energy system. Reiki practitioners strive to improve health and quality of life by offering Reiki energy and restoring balance. Reiki is used in self-care, for care of one's family, and in hospitals and medical settings as an adjacent and supportive therapy to wellness and traditional medical care. The history of Usui Reiki begins with its founder, Dr. Mikao Usui. Sometimes called the Usui Sensei, Dr. Mikao Usui Sensei was born to a wealthy Buddhist family in 1865. Dr. Usui's family was able to give their son a well-rounded education for the time. As a child, Dr. Usui studied in Buddhist monastery where he was taught martial arts, swordsmanship, and the Japanese form of Qigong called as Kiko. Throughout his education, Dr. Usui had an interest in medicine, psychology, and theology. It was this interest that prompted him to seek a way to heal himself and others using the laying on of hands. It was his desire to find a method of healing that was unattached to any specific religion and religious belief, so that this system would be accessible to everyone and in every community. Dr. Usui traveled a great deal during his lifetime. He studied healing systems of all types and held different professions, including reporter, secretary, missionary, private servant, and guard. Finally, he became a Buddhist monk and lived in a monastery. It is said that Mikao Usui's abilities were far superior to those of his friends in his childhood. He loved to read as a child and continued to study on his own even as a grown man. Usui's interests ranged from biographies, history, medicine, psychology, and theology, including Buddhist and Christian, to astrology, and there are so many things he has researched on. The memorial describes Usui's nature as a gentle, humble, and says that he tended to show his true feelings. He was quite a large man who always had a smile on his face. As an adult, Usui had a variety of occupations, including public servant, office worker, industrialist, reporter, missionary, supervisor of convicts, and politician's secretary. Despite Usui's knowledge and ability, the unusual large variety of jobs he had suggests as a restlessness in his nature. Although he was not always successful in life and was often quite poor, Usui was determined not to let these setbacks worry him, and he threw himself more deeply into his studies. Given the extent of his studies, Mikao Usui may well have formed his own perspective on deep philosophical questions such as why we are here and what is the purpose of life. But if he did, there is very little documentation that he taught his theories or ideas until very late in life. There are stories from people who knew and studied with Mikao Usui from around 1915, including a group of Buddhist nuns, which indicate he originally taught a spiritual system to help students reach enlightenment. Supposedly, his system was included with healing practices. However, some of these sources are contradictory and there is at this time no hard evidence to back up those claims. For example, the existence of the nuns was never corroborated by the third party. The first documented evidence of Usui's teachings comes from the memorial stone, which describes his period of fasting on Mount Kurama near Kyoto, during which he experienced a great Reiki around his head, means in his crown chakra, or a shock in the center of his head. Depending on the translation ascended, an effect of which was that he offended a Reiki Ryoho, Reiki healing method. After practicing the method of himself and his family with much success, Mikao Usui opened a dojo. Dojo means training hall in Harajuku, Tokyo in April 1922 and began teaching people and offering healing sessions. Usui was so popular that people traveled great distance to receive his guidance and healing. The memorial states that there was often a long line of shoes outside just to visit him. People took their shoes before entering the hall. Usui was a progressive thinker in a very traditional society. He made a bold decision to teach his practice of Reiki to the public rather than keeping it as a family secret or just for a close group of people, as was traditional in healing system and martial arts. In Usui's Kokai Denju, means thoughts of the teaching, which appears in a handbook of the Usui's Reiki Ryoho, he says, I quote, "In times like this, the happiness of humanity is based on working together and the desire for social progress. This is why I would never allow anyone to possess in Reiki Ryoho just for himself." I unquote. So friends, for the second part of Mikao Usui's biography and his Reiki healing process, please stay tuned for my next video, means video part 2 of this same video. Please stay tuned for the rest information on the part 2 video. I hope you liked and inspired with this story. Thank you so much and bye-bye for today.